Okay, let me start this off by saying I really liked Transformers 1. I really like what I've seen of Transformers Earthspark, which is just season 1. I love the toy line right now. I mean, I love getting Armada figures like Tidal Wave and Armada Optimus Prime. That's the series I grew up on. Studio Series 86 is killing it. The gamer editions are really cool. I'm excited for HasLab Omega Prime next year. That's going to be awesome. I loved that figure growing up. I enjoyed the toy line from it. I enjoyed Scourge as a villain and his design. Getting to hear Peter Cullen do Optimus in a theater is a great time, anytime. I loved Bumblebee back in 2018. I did not care for the last two Michael Bay movies, but I loved the Bayverse before that. I even didn't mind the Netflix War for Cybertron trilogy. I mean, I think there are things about it that are absolutely terrible, but I kind of had a fun time with Kingdom in the end. I mean, I took it for what it was. It was okay. And I really love Reactivate Optimus and some of the Reactivate figures. I'm excited for that game when it comes out. But all that said, I have a problem with Transformers right now. And the fact that I just went through all of that kind of illustrates what the problem is to me, which is Transformers as a brand and as a story has like no focus right now. And it hasn't had any focus for years. Well, I always go back to this time in 2002, 2003, when Transformers Armada was airing. That was the TV show that started it all for me. This is one of my favorite figures of the most recent years, of course, because of that. And I so clearly remember watching Transformers Armada on TV, getting the figures, seeing the comics in store, and I recognized that although the toy line was really successful, the video game wasn't super financially successful, but I love it. I thought it was a quality game, and when it came out, I remember thinking as I was playing it that it was super cool to see the Optimus design that I had in hand and that I was seeing on TV be translated into a video game. And although the game doesn't include all the characters from the TV show, it doesn't have the same plot points, it still follows the same general idea. You've got the same character designs. Optimus and Megatron are voiced by their original TV show voice actors. Everyone else is approximating the voices of the cartoons. You've got the same general plot, which is to capture the minicons, the main gimmick of the line. And yeah, the point is the video game really aligned to the experience of collecting the toy line and watching the show at the time. And yes, there were some other things going on at the time. You had the Generations line being advertised as like a toy line that was on the side, continuously running to bring you other figures from across the Transformers franchise. And then you had alternators featured in the same booklet. And again, that felt really clear as to like what that was trying to do. It was offering you another kind of toy line with licensed highly detailed vehicles. But as far as I remember, that was kind of it. That was all that was going on with the brand. Sure, you had Transformers Energon coming around the corner, but it was a sequel to Armada, so that kind of flows. You had rumblings of the live-action movie coming into development, which would happen later at the tail end of Energon and Cybertron. But for a moment, everything felt really focused and cohesive to me as a fan of Transformers at the time. And if you compare that to the last 2 years, I mean, you already have Rise of the Beast and Transformers 1, two theatrical movies that have nothing to do with each other. Rise of the Beast is like an unclear continuation of Bumblebee, which was an unclear partial reboot of the Michael Bay movies. Rise of the Beast is like marketed as paying homage to Beast Wars while like barely featuring those figures. Right after Beast Wars was prominently featured in Kingdom, which just felt like a big homage to G1 and also Beast Wars. And then you've got the Transformers Legacy toy line, which again, I like all these things, but the toy line is just kind of referencing any continuity from the last 40 years. And then you have Transformers Cyberverse still showing up on some shelves. And yeah, that just speaks to the problem that I forgot to mention Cyberverse in the intro as well. Again, I also liked Cyberverse on its own. It's not great, but I appreciate what it's trying to do in a vacuum. But when you're a Transformers fan and you have Earthspark, which is doing its own thing, Transformers 1 doing its own thing, Cyberverse, which did its own thing, still lingering on shelves and still being like uploaded to YouTube. I still never got to finish that series because I got distracted by other things. Rise of the Beast just a year ago. Figures from the opening scene of the Bumblebee movie that still haven't been made that are coming out in studio series. This 40th anniversary stuff, celebrating the whole 40 years, giving us Omega Prime and HasLab. Transformers Reactivate, whatever the heck it is, still not released. Over a year after fans have gotten their hands on figures from that video game. Then we've got news of the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover, which is what Rise of the Beast teases at the end of it. I just feel like there's always too much happening these days with Transformers, and no focus on one particular story or set of designs or characters that would allow me to enjoy it as much as I could if there weren't like 10 series going on at the same time. I mean, the 2007 movie was another good example, where you have the movie, you have tie-in comics, and you have a video game, and you have figures from that movie coming out both in Robot Replicas form and in the main line, and it felt really cohesive. Like, you can enjoy those designs in that time period of Transformers. Of course, once Revenge of the Fallen came out, the whole like story got kind of messy. The timeline started contradicting itself, and they also did Transformers Animated in the middle of that as yet another distraction. And again, I like the Bayverse, I like Transformers Animated, but the point is, it just seems like there's always too much happening for you to really sink your teeth into one area of Transformers and enjoy it as much as you could. I'm also a Star Wars fan who really doesn't like the direction they've taken a lot of the Star Wars content lately. I love Andor, I loved Rogue One, I love the idea and parts of Kenobi, although I really hate that it got stretched into a TV show instead of being an awesome movie. But regardless about how I feel about any of the new Star Wars stuff coming out, one thing I appreciate is that it's still always one timeline. Now, it's far too late for there to be one timeline for Transformers, but I kind of liked what they were trying to do with the aligned continuity and trying to give you one central timeline where the characters, whether they're being represented millions of years ago on Cybertron or whether you're following their adventures on Earth, they're all the same instance of those characters. They have the same vibes, the same voice actors-ish. Again, it's more like they were trying to do it with the aligned continuity. I don't think they actually pulled it off that well, but I would really like to see them try that again. And like I said, I really like Transformers 1. It's a shame that it didn't do super well at the box office because that means the chances of us focusing in on that continuity are kind of slim in terms of getting a sequel and stuff. But wouldn't it be nice if Transformers 1 was the beginning of many years of focus on that iteration of the characters? Like, you got to follow that version of Optimus Prime and Megatron, who had a super meaningful, heartfelt, emotional backstory, and you got to kind of follow them and see, Starscream's betrayal or whatever it is that took them to Earth and the subsequent adventures that they went on Earth. And it was those same characters, and you could be like, wow, they've come so far since Cybertron. And you could hold the figures, and although they would probably get redesigned a little bit each film, maybe there would be some sense that like, yeah, this is the same Optimus that I saw back on Cybertron, just with some kind of Earth mode upgrades or something like that. Instead, I find myself like sitting here with this Transformers 1 Optimus Prime figure that I think is like excellent, but I'm kind of like, am I ever going to see this character again? Like this version of Optimus Prime? Or is the Earthspark Optimus going to get some cool design at the end of Earthspark that I want the toy for, and then I have the toy, but I never actually end up watching the rest of Earthspark, and by the time I get around to it, there's already like 2 more projects being announced. Because that's kind of been my experience as of the last few years. Like I said, I never got around to finishing Cyberverse, because by the time I actually kind of sat down and started to say like, okay, what streaming service is Cyberverse on where I can watch it? Are there like worthwhile toys to collect and be interested in after I watched this? I was being distracted by Rise of the Beast, Transformers Reactivated, Studio Series, Transformers Legacy, Transformers 1. And yeah, it just feels like I could say that about any one piece of the Transformers franchise in like maybe the last 10 years at this point. I know this problem has kind of always plagued the franchise, and it's not like a new thing right now. And I'm sure someone in the comments is going to be like, well, actually in 2002 and 2004, they had this going on. You just didn't experience it as a kid. But whatever, even if there were like 10 other shows I didn't know about at that time, there were still multiple pieces of media that were focusing in on the same set of characters and the same set of ideas that I could really sink my teeth into for more than like 6 months. It kind of lasted at least 2 years. And I think there should always be like the equivalent of Transformers Legacy, where you have like this toy line that's always kind of representing the franchise's entire history, giving people new versions of their favorite designs from the rich history of the franchise. And one of my favorite parts of the franchise is its diversity. I'm glad that you can like look at Megatron and see 10 completely different designs. I think it's cool that you can watch some shows and they feel like a Japanese anime, and you can watch other shows like Transformers Animated that feels like Teen Titans and a Cartoon Network show. And you can turn on the Michael Bay movies for some like Bayhem. And then you can watch Rise of the Beast and Bumblebee, which are also live action, but a definitively different feel than that Michael Bay Bayhem. And then now Transformers 1, like a Pixar level ILM animated, 3D animated adventure that looks amazing and is heartfelt, completely different from the other theatrical movies, including of course the original 1986 movie, which is different in and of itself. But geez, the diversity is also kind of the downfall of the franchise in terms of like how much I could enjoy it. I notice it a lot too when I'm trying to tell people about Transformers and like what I like or what I'm excited about. And they'll kind of be like, oh yeah, wasn't there like that new one with like the gorilla or whatever? And I'm like, oh yeah, Rise of the Beast, like there's been another movie since then, and there's been TV shows, and there's a rumor of a video game, and there's comics, and they're like, oh well, which thing do you like? And I'm kind of like, well, I guess I kind of like them all. And then they're like, which thing do you recommend I watch? And I'm like, well, I haven't actually had time to watch all of Earthspark. I definitely don't recommend Netflix War for Cybertron. Rise of the Beast is okay. Transformers 1 is really good, although it is kind of built like for Transformers fans. Like, I think the general audience can appreciate it, but is it going to be as good if you're not like a true Transformers fan already? I don't know. And yeah, the fact that I can't coherently be like, oh, there's this series running right now, which takes place between these two films, I think you should watch it, it's really good. Like, I wish there was something like that. And some people are like, oh yeah, I remember that old game on PS3. They're talking about War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron. And wouldn't it be cool if there was like a movie that told that story again that had the same look and feel? And you could be like, you should watch that movie. Like, if you like that game, that movie kind of told the same story with the same versions of those characters. But no, instead there's just like, oh yeah, well, if you like that, well, maybe you'll like Transformers 1 because it also took place on Cybertron, but it's like totally different, not really related. I don't know. I might be nitpicking. I just wish there was like a little more focus and a little more synergy between like a video game and a movie and a TV show. One thing that I think is a big, huge missed opportunity is just like one-off animated movies that continue the stories from other pieces of the franchise. They don't even have to be like canon per se. Just do something like the original Dragon Ball Z movies where you see Armada Optimus off on an adventure that kind of is implied to take place before they landed on Cybertron at the end. And maybe it's a multiverse thing where he meets G1 Optimus, just like that one story in that one book. And then you have a new piece of media to accompany the latest nostalgia toy that you're selling on shelves. Like, I think that's a no-brainer. Like, every couple years, whoever's been featured in the toy line, give us like a one-off movie, bring back the original voice actors, make us that much more excited to like collect the figures that are on the shelves with official media that also stands on its own but has synergy with the figures and just increases the richness of storytelling in Transformers without creating like a completely divergent path that has nothing to do with the rest. It connects with what we already know and love, the designs and iterations that we already know and love. I guess if I were to offer a solution, that would be one solution that I have in mind. Another thing would be movie tie-in games. I miss movie tie-in games. Give me a movie tie-in game to Transformers 1. That would be so cool. Even if it's just like a platformer where you're like jumping around the trains and stuff, I would just love to revisit the world through another medium. It would make me enjoy the toys that much more, the movie that much more. And then Hasbro's getting some game revenue. Like, come on, we all win. Anyways, I think that's my rant on like the lack of focus in Transformers. Like I said, the diversity is also something I really love, but the lack of focus sometimes is something that kills me. And yeah, sometimes I just wish there was more focus in just one multi-year connected experience across mediums, across the toys, where everything closely relates, and we can look back 10 years from now and be like, man, remember that continuity that they told over those 3 to 5 years? How in the video game he did this, and in the comics they did this, and boy, that had one of the best designs for Starscream and one of the coolest designs for Optimus. Like, I mean, just look at Tidal Wave. He's cool in the show, but the video game made him legendary. Like, that's what I'm looking for. Anyways, that's my rant for the day. Stay tuned for more Transformers stuff. I want to make a video about the positive side, about how much I love the diversity. That's for another day. Let me know what you think, if you think this is a problem or if you like totally disagree with me. And be sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.